President Trump has made a bold move, slapping tariffs on pharmaceuticals coming from abroad. His goal to bring drug manufacturing back to American soil. The president argues that these tariffs will incentivize companies to relocate their production from countries like China and Ireland back to the United States. He believes this will boost the American economy and create jobs. This promise has resonated with many, but the reality of the pharmaceutical industry paints a more complicated picture. The pharmaceutical industry is complex and globally interconnected. Moving production is not as simple as flipping a switch. It involves navigating regulatory hurdles, ensuring quality control, and securing a skilled workforce. All of this takes time and significant investment. Trump's tariffs are a gamble, a bet that the allure of the American market, coupled with the sting of tariffs, will be enough to overcome these challenges. However, a closer look at the economics of pharmaceutical production suggests that this gamble may not pay off as intended. The pharmaceutical relationship between the European Union and the United States is deeply intertwined. In 2024, pharmaceuticals were the EU's top export to the United States, totaling a staggering $127 billion. This figure underscores the significant role that European drug makers play in the American healthcare system. These exports are not limited to a few specific drugs. They encompass a wide range of essential medications that Americans rely on. From life-saving cancer treatments to everyday antibiotics, European pharmaceuticals are a critical part of the US healthcare supply chain. Trump's tariffs threaten to disrupt this delicate balance. By increasing the cost of importing drugs from Europe, these tariffs could have unintended consequences for American consumers. Higher prices for essential medications could strain healthcare budgets and limit access to vital treatments. The close ties between the EU and the US in pharmaceuticals highlight the global nature of drug production and the potential risks of protectionist policies. Moving pharmaceutical production is not as simple as packing up equipment and setting up shop elsewhere. It's a lengthy and intricate process governed by stringent regulations and complex manufacturing requirements. These challenges make relocating production a daunting task, even for the most resourceful companies. One of the biggest hurdles is regulatory approval. Pharmaceutical companies must comply with strict safety and efficacy standards in both their home country and the country where they intend to sell their products. These approvals involve rigorous clinical trials, extensive documentation, and meticulous inspections of manufacturing facilities. The entire process can take several years and cost millions, if not billions of dollars. Beyond regulatory hurdles, pharmaceutical manufacturing itself is a complex undertaking. Drug production requires specialized equipment, highly skilled personnel, and strict quality control measures at every stage. Building new facilities to meet these standards is a capital-intensive endeavor, further complicating the relocation process. The combination of regulatory constraints and manufacturing complexities makes moving pharmaceutical production a long and costly proposition, casting doubt on the effectiveness of tariffs as a tool to incentivize reshoring. Section 4. Building in America, a price tag Big Pharma can't ignore. Constructing new pharmaceutical manufacturing plants in the United States carries a hefty price tag. The cost of land, labor, and materials is significantly higher in the US compared to many other countries where pharmaceutical production currently takes place. Recent investments by major pharmaceutical companies illustrate the scale of these expenditures. Eli Lilly, a leading pharmaceutical giant, recently committed $23 billion to expand its manufacturing footprint in the US. Merck, another industry heavyweight, announced a $1 billion investment in a new manufacturing facility. These massive investments highlight the enormous financial commitment required to establish or expand pharmaceutical production in the United States. These costs are further amplified by the Trump administration's own policies. The 25% tariffs imposed on imported steel and aluminum have driven up construction costs across the board, including for pharmaceutical plants. This means that companies considering relocating production to the US are now facing even higher expenses. The high cost of building in America presents a major obstacle to Trump's goal of reshoring pharmaceutical production. The economics simply may not add up for many companies, especially when considering the potential risks and uncertainties associated with such a move. Section 5. The price of protectionism. Steel tariffs add fuel to the fire. The Trump administration's tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, while intended to protect domestic industries, have had ripple effects throughout the economy, including the pharmaceutical sector. These tariffs have driven up the cost of construction materials, making it more expensive to build new manufacturing facilities in the United States. The pharmaceutical industry relies heavily on steel and aluminum in the construction of its manufacturing plants. These materials are essential for building everything from the structural framework of the buildings to the specialized equipment used in drug production. The tariffs have added a significant premium to the cost of these materials, making it even more expensive for companies to invest in US-based production. This increase in construction costs comes at a time when the pharmaceutical industry is already facing pressure to control spending. Rising research and development costs, coupled with growing scrutiny of drug pricing, have made pharmaceutical companies more cautious about their investments. The steel and aluminum tariffs have exacerbated these challenges, further disincentivizing companies from relocating their production to the United States. The Trump administration's protectionist policies, while well-intentioned, may ultimately undermine their goal of bringing manufacturing back to American shores. Section 6. Alternative paths to reshoring. Incentives over punitive measures. While tariffs may grab headlines, experts argue that a more effective approach to reshoring pharmaceutical production lies in creating a more favorable business environment in the United States. This involves a shift from punitive measures like tariffs to more proactive policies that incentivize companies to invest in American manufacturing. One such incentive is targeted tax breaks for companies that establish or expand pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities in the United States. By reducing the tax burden on these companies, the government can make investing in American manufacturing more financially attractive. Another approach is to streamline the regulatory process for new drug approvals and facility inspections. The lengthy and complex nature of these processes can discourage companies from setting up shop in the United States. By making the regulatory environment more efficient and predictable, the government can reduce the time and cost associated with bringing new drugs to market in the United States. Furthermore, the government can prioritize purchasing pharmaceuticals from American manufacturers. By guaranteeing a certain level of demand for domestically produced drugs, the government can provide a stable market for companies that choose to manufacture in the United States. These alternative paths to reshoring focus on creating a more attractive business environment for pharmaceutical manufacturers rather than punishing them for producing overseas. This approach is more likely to yield long-term results and encourage sustainable growth in the American pharmaceutical industry.